Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. We are recording this on Monday, March 6th. We know it's been a minute since we recorded a podcast. A lot has happened within the Thunder Basketball Universe. Don't worry, we are going to get you all caught up. Me and Nick have been running all over the place these last couple of weeks between games, community events, All-Star Weekend, obviously, you name it. We've been all over the place. So we're going to use this podcast just to catch up and debrief a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a sprint since the All-Star break. And actually, the Thunder had a stretch of 5 games in 7 nights. And then immediately after that, a stretch of 4 games in 6 nights right on top of that. So it's quite the stretch here for OKC. And they've shown some great resilience during that, as if we, bouncing through all those different things that have been going on here in our schedule and how busy the team has been both on and off the floor.
It's interesting because the Thunder right now is about to wrap up a 6-game homestand here inside of Paycom Center. But even during this homestand, the team has been doing a lot of stuff, and we'll get into all of that. But one thing that we really wanted to talk about were the last couple of games that we've played inside of Paycom Center. It was a little mini series against the Utah Jazz. The Thunder has one more game now in this homestand. It's the front end of a back-to-back. But these past couple of games have been against the same team, the Utah Jazz, and the Thunder has now played them 3 times in a matter of 7 games. And so there's a lot of just information and a lot of familiarity exactly with this team, and the Thunder showing a lot of resilience and a lot of poise over these last couple of games. Because if you remember, the Jazz was the first game back from the All-Star break that the Thunder faced. So
went into overtime on the front end of that back-to-back,
Right out of Salt Lake City All-Star, the Thunder went back to Salt Lake City and took on the Jazz, and Lauri Markkanen, again, he had 43 points in that first meeting, and obviously Utah, like you mentioned, Nick, won that game. The Thunder now had a chance to respond to this game, and in this first game, it was back on Friday, the Thunder just put together an incredible wire-to-wire win. And the thing that really stood out in this game was the defense. And one little switch in the game plan, which I thought was so smart, was having Lou Dort on Lauri Markkanen in this game. Rather than going height for height, size for size against a guy like Markkanen, Coach Dagnall said, we're going to put some physicality and force on him and see what happens.
Yeah, just play your ace.
Yeah.
If you're in a game of war, just play your ace. And that's what the Thunder did. Markkanen didn't take a shot until the 12-second mark of the first quarter. That means, nearly 12 minutes went by before he even took a shot. He ended up with 20 points, but on extremely inefficient shooting and really was not a factor in the game the way that he was out in Utah.
Didn't make a 3 in that game either, which broke a really long stretch for him.
I think it was like 46 straight games or something like that. It was one of the 2 or 3 longest streaks in the NBA actively before the Thunder shut that down. And that then created this downstream flow where the Thunder was really able to get Utah's offense completely out of sync, and it resulted in 26 turnovers by the Jazz.
Which was a season high in turnovers forced by the Thunder, resulted in 32 points off of turnovers for the Thunder, and the Thunder ended up winning that game 130-103. Another big standout, we talked about the defense from Lou Dort. Well, it was the offense for Aaron Wiggins. He had 27 points, a season high, just shy of his career high of 29 points, but he absolutely went off in the fourth quarter. 17 points in the fourth quarter alone for Aaron Wiggins, and he doesn't get these stretches of minutes often. He doesn't even start games often. His role seems to switch every single night for the Thunder, whether it's coming off the bench or just playing spot minutes. But when he gets his cracks and he gets his opportunities, he always takes advantage.
And it's because he's such an efficient and balanced player. This is a guy that lived at the rim on Friday night. He's only hit 1 3 in the entire game, but he was relentless in terms of his attacking out in transition. He was at the rim, on the rim all night long, and it's because he had the mentality of playing downhill, attacking. It's exactly how OKC wants to play, and he was not going ISO one-on-one. He was playing off the catch, beating a defender when he already had an advantage step, or a teammate had created an advantage for him. And also, we just know that he's so great at those backdoor cuts that the second that a defender's head is turned, he's already on the move.
I love what Coach Dagnall said after the game, where he said, Aaron didn't do anything out of the ordinary that he doesn't always do for the Thunder. He just got a few more cracks. And as we know about Aaron, he's very consistent and he's very professional. He's going to give you the same effort. And so if he's got his opportunities out there, he's going to try to make the most of it and help his team. That's exactly what he did in that game. And so just a quick recap of that game. 6 guys scored in double figures for the Thunder. The Thunder scored 30 or more points in all 4 quarters of that game. And they shot above 50% from the field in that game as well. And so the offense for the game and for the Thunder in that game was just really kind of a continuation of what we've seen from OKC, really as of late, really, like all season long, realistically, from this group. It wasn't really the offensive end that the Thunder had really been putting their attention on. It was the defensive end. And this was an area that the Thunder really showed up in that first game against Utah. Well, they had to answer again because Utah was back in the building on Sunday. And this game was a little bit different for a couple of reasons. One, Utah was without Lauri Markkanen, who obviously is their go-to guy. They're all-star on that team. And the Thunder added Shai Gilgeous-Alexander back into the lineup. Such a great sight for everybody inside of Paycom Center and, of course, everybody on that Thunder roster. And the Thunder, yet again, put together another 48-minute performance, one wire-to-wire, but in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah, I think the most important similarity is that if you look at the games leading up to the first Utah game here at home at Paycom Center, the Thunder had played very well offensively, but struggled to really put together 4 quarters of solid defense, particularly a defensive punch from the very outset of the game. And I think that's what made Friday's game such an opportunity for breakthrough. And as these guys said, they felt like, okay, we've hit a little bit of a wall here where we're playing very well on offense, but we can't string together stops the way that we really want to. The fact that they were able to do that on Friday was then a great carryover in the first 6 minutes of the game on Sunday, where OKC jumped out to an 18-6 advantage, and you hold a team to just 6 points over 6 minutes in an NBA game during any stretch of the game. It's big time. Over the first 6 minutes, it is such a tone setter that you're really rolling downhill from there.
And it's an important lesson for a young team to learn about the importance of those first 5-6 minutes in every game, every half. They can be such strong tone setters, and that requires a lot of skill to be able to come out of the gates like that and land that first punch. One guy we have to talk about who obviously helped with that tone setting was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously his first game back after missing 5 games with that abdominal strain and the mixture of health and safety protocols as well. And so this is his first time back out on the floor. He admitted after the game to being a little bit winded, having to catch his breath a little bit. But, I mean, he put together a really great performance. His rotations are going to be a little bit different just from here on out as the Thunder kind of monitor and measure his health and getting back to 100%. He didn't play the entirety of that first quarter like he normally does, and the Thunder's going to start to look at some back-to-backs as well, just to kind of manage his injury and his ability to get back to 100%.
Yeah, you can expect some shorter stints out on the floor. It still ended up playing 37 minutes, but they might configure those things differently, and as you said, the back-to-backs may become a factor here. But if he was winded, he didn't show it.
Not at all.
38 points on 17 field goal attempts is unbelievable. Not to mention the 3 steals and a block and 7 rebounds and 4 assists. I mean, the guy just was all over the place. His hand, he didn't even get the box score doesn't even show the impact that he made just on the overall defensive context, where he was getting deflections and just being a part of that 5-man unit. And the fact that he was out for 5 games and the team was able to seamlessly just fit those puzzle pieces in exactly where they should be without there being any sort of push and pull and consternation. And J-Dub said after the game, it was easy getting Shai back into the lineup, and it felt natural and normal to do it.
The only time he looked winded was right before his walk-off.
That's right.
And he had kind of his hands on his knees and his head down, and I was like, oh, I guess he could be a little tired.
I think he just let it all out.
Didn't show it at all during the game. In fact, there was one play in the game that, Nick, you and I both talked about, Chris and Mike talked about on the broadcast as well, as just kind of like the biggest play of the game for the Thunder. It wasn't even the most flashy play for Shai offensively. The man had himself a highlight reel worth of step backs and faders and just layups at the rim. But this play in the third quarter, Utah had rallied its way back. The Thunder had a lead of as many as 24 points in this game. the Jazz rallied back, cut it to a 10-point lead in the third quarter. This could have been kind of a pivotal moment where the Jazz could have started to chip away, make it single digits, and maybe even try to turn the tides in the fourth quarter. And there was a play where the Thunder missed a shot. It was kind of a long rebound. It was kind of a broken play.
Yep.
Who was going to get the ball? It ended up bobbling out to half court. And Shai laid out just full like Superman onto the floor to secure the basketball, kicked it out ahead of him to Isaiah Joe, who knocked down a three-pointer. And that sent the Paycom Center crowd erupting in just cheers and applause and gave the Thunder kind of some wind back in its sails and some momentum to carry it through the rest of the game. That was the biggest play of the game, and Shai obviously a huge catalyst to that.
We see a ton of NBA basketball, and we see how these scripts can go sometimes. Not actual scripts, but the way that these things flow in that, like, if that ball bounces the other direction, that Thunder lead would have been trimmed down to like 4.
Exactly.
And it would have been a totally different tenor of that ball game. But the lead goes back up to 13, and Utah never really threatened seriously after that. The final margin was 10 points, but it was never like a 2-possession game or a 3-possession game after that. And a lot of the guys after the game credited, once again, that great start that they got out to. And that's been something that they've been searching for really all season long. Is they've been playing from behind. They have the most 10-point comeback victories in the league this season.
Yeah.
They have coughed up the fewest 10-point leads. And part of that is great. They've held on to these leads that they have had. But part of it is also they haven't been in position to have to defend some of those. And so Shai said after the game that was really good experience for them to be in that position where they were in command and having to defend against that. And he made the play of the game to ensure that that happened. There was one other kind of dynamic that I did want to touch on from this game, which is Lauri Markkanen did not play in the second game. Utah got Jordan Clarkson back for that game.
Yep.
And so the Thunder's solve for that was, okay, well, we're going to just put Lou on Jordan Clarkson because this is a guy that's a high-level perimeter scorer. This is exactly the type of player that we typically see Dort on.
Exactly. And player ace.
Exactly.
Once again.
And once again, it was an extremely slow start for Clarkson, which then had downhill ripple effects for the rest of the team. He shot just 1 of 7 to begin the game, including 0 for 5 from 3. He ended up with 18 points on 6 of 15 shooting, like not a high-level Jordan Clarkson night. And a big impact was Lou, of course. We saw Shai on Clarkson at some points as well, but just another kind of dynamic that speaks to the impact of playing that ace from the very outset and how that can have downstream effects on the rest of the game.
Yeah, and the consistency that Lou brings on that end of the floor on every single possession. I mean, I think I remember a possession particularly, and this is probably not the greatest example because Jordan Clarkson made the shot. He made the shot, but it was despite the fact that Lou Dort had to switch, and so there was a ball screen at the top of the key, and it ended up being Lou switching with Shai. So Shai ended up being on Jordan Clarkson. So he attacked downhill. He got to the block. But when he got to the block, it was Shai on one side, Lou in front of him, and then Josh came over and helped as the load man on the other way. And so it's like that was the example of just kind of like the swarming defense that the Thunder plays with. And the fact that Lou had to, sprint across the court and everybody was locked in on, okay, Jordan Clarkson is obviously the go-to guy for the Jazz. And so we're all going to be locked in. It's not just Lou on an island. It's everybody helping. And of course, I mean, like he made the shot, but it was a hard shot that he had to work for over 6 hands. Like that's the type of defense that the Thunder wants to play with on every single possession. If they're going to make a shot, you got to make them earn it.
Yeah. And over the course of the 34 minutes that Clarkson played, that shot being a make is less likely to happen as that game goes along and as he gets continually worn down and pressured. So it's a war of attrition when you're defending these high-level scorers, and all you're trying to do is mitigate on the margins, the easy ones, and try to make them have an inefficient night.
Can we just talk about the vocabulary you used there, the war of attrition and mitigate the margins? Is that what you said? Mitigate the margins?
Yeah. We're just saying stuff out here.
No, that is high level stuff. That is next level reporting right there. All right, so we got to run through just a couple more stats from this game because there were a few guys who really stood out. Obviously, Shai with his 38 points. Josh Giddey had another near triple-double night with 24 points, 9 assists, 9 rebounds. I mean, just on the doorstep right there. Big night for him. And then the rookie, J-Dub, Jalen Williams, had himself another really big night with 32 points. That's a career high for him. He also had 2 blocks, 2 steals, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, there isn't a stat on here that he didn't affect in this game. And the biggest thing that really stood out to me, we've seen the defense from J-Dub already this season. We already know what he's capable of with his ability to be so anticipatory, his high IQ, and his 7'2" wingspan that can be so disruptive. We've seen his ability to be really crafty and find cracks in the defense with back cuts, and obviously his ability to drive to the rim. What stood out to me in this game was his ability to find catch-and-shoot looks from behind the arc. This is a level up for J-Dub so far this season because, as I mentioned, all the other ways that he can affect the game. But if he can knock down those catch-and-shoots, if he can find those catch-and-shoot opportunities and those cracks, he can be very, very dangerous. And he went 4 of 5 from 3. That is a career high for him as well.
Yeah, if that starts to come, then everybody's got to watch out because that is a totally different dynamic that you have to deal with on a guy with his size and length and playmaking ability. He can score from both sides of the floor on downhill attacks. He can stop and pop in the mid-range, and you add a three-pointer to that, then he's a 3-level scorer.
Exactly.
And what do you do with him, especially when you got to deal with Shai, when you got to deal with the size and the physicality of a guy like Josh and all of the shooting and playmaking around those guys as well. So it's been amazing to see the surge that J-Dub has had here. This is now at least 20 points in 5 of his last 6 games, 7 of his last 11 games. And at a time when most rookies might be hitting a wall, when a lot of rookies are playing on teams that don't have much to play for or not in significant roles, here's a guy in J-Dub who is playing 30-plus minutes every single night on a team that's, in the hunt on postseason situation, and and more importantly, is competitive every single night, regardless of where they are in the standings. And he's making such an impact in such an efficient way. We often see rookies that put up big time numbers, but they're doing it on 35% field goal shooting. Right. This guy's above 50% from the field as a guard, which is incredible.
And something that Coach Dagnall points out all the time is that he just competes. That's what makes him a high-level player, is his level of competition that he plays to on every single possession, every single game. We've seen J-Dub games where he scored 5 points, 3 points, but he would have like 7 rebounds or 6 assists or a couple of blocks, a couple of steals. Like, he has the ability to affect the game in a multitude of ways, and that's what he leans into out there on the floor. He's not out there hunting his own shot. He's out there playing within the flow of the offense and within the construct of the team, and that's something that really stood out about this game. Yes, J-Dub, Josh, Shai all had their individual nights, but it was a sum greater than, no, it was a whole greater than the sum of the parts. Dang it, I can't believe I messed that one up. Sorry, Coach. But that's exactly what he talked about after the game, is that everybody worked together cohesively, offensively, and that's what made this group so effective.
One thing on Josh, just because it still is a marvel to me that he's 20 years old. And if you look at the course of his career, he's now played...
J-Dub is older than Josh.
Yeah, stunning. Josh has now played, I think, 113 games in his career. Yeah, and in more than a third of them, so 39 out of those 113 games, he's had a stat line of 15, 5, and 5. That's completely absurd for a guy that's 20 years old to have that many games already under his belt with 15, 5, and 5. He's not a prolific scorer.
No.
That's not like his game necessarily. He's not hunting his own shots. He is hunting aggressiveness. That's something that he told us, that he's like, he knows that in order for the team to thrive, he has to be aggressive. And whether or not that's him making a play, that's making an assist or making a point, he's got to be getting the blender going for this team. And just because of his physical gifts and attributes, because of his vision, because of his physicality at 20 years old, he's just racking up these games of extreme productivity. And it's such an amazing thing to see. And a stat like that just always helps put in perspective that when he does have a subpar night for his standards that he's unintentionally set high, to recognize that what he's doing consistently on a week over week basis is absolutely absurd.
And he told us, like, the force that he's playing with, especially over these past 3 or 4 games, can't be a sometimes thing.
Yes.
It has to be an every single game thing. And Coach Dagnall has been encouraging him to do that. And obviously that's very top of mind for him because he realizes even if it's not to score, right?
Yeah.
Like even if it's getting downhill just to attract some defense and attract some attention, that's going to open up his ability to do what he wants to do, which is pass to his teammates and facilitate and make some of those really high-level facilitating plays. And it's opened up so much for him on both ends of the floor when he's able to play with that level of aggression. So really great stuff that we're seeing from the Thunder's young players. And last night's game was so much fun to see these guys kind of work things out in real time out there on the floor. But it was also fun for other reasons. It was Noches NBA for the Thunder, so there were a lot of fun activations all throughout the floor. That is just one example of the many things happening off the court for the Thunder as of late. We're going to talk about all of those things, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
All right, so we've been having a lot of fun on the floor watching this team play recently, but me and Nick, we have had some fun off the floor as well, whether it was out in Salt Lake City for All-Star Weekend or, like we mentioned before the break, the Noches NBA night inside of Paycom Center last night, which was so much fun, whether it was the mariachi band playing up in the concourse or Elena Ornelas doing all of the starting lineups. That is always like just brings so much more energy into the game. It's just something completely different than what we see every single night, and it was just so much fun.
Oh, it was a blast. The energy and the kind of the experience, the game night experience that's always cool at Paycom Center was like at a different level, and just kind of it's a nice like way in the middle of a long season to just have the whole experience feel brand new. The other thing that was really cool was that the Thunder's Quinceañera surprise gift. You'll have to explain this a little bit better.
I got you.
But the young woman that won this sort of special surprise Quinceañera party from the Thunder was in attendance last night for this game. And if you haven't seen the video on OKCThunder.com or are at OKC Thunder social channels, like you're probably gonna cry. It's amazing.
I mean, did I get misty-eyed on the broadcast reading, telling you about this story?
Yeah.
Yes, I did, because it was just so special. Okay, so in celebration of the Thunder's 15th season in Oklahoma City, in partnership with the Latin Community Development Agency, the organization decided to gift a very deserving teenager here in Oklahoma City with her very own quinceañera party, which is obviously a very big deal within the Hispanic and Latin American communities, celebrating a young woman's 15th birthday. And Lupita Martinez, she was the one who won this quinceañera, and she didn't think, her and her mother, she didn't think that she would have her party. Like it's very expensive. A lot goes into it. It's essentially like wedding level planning for this party. And so it's cake, it's dress, it's makeup, it's food, and it's venue, and a lot of money and planning goes into it. And she just didn't think she'd be able to afford one. And so she had it in her mind that, it's just not going to happen, and that's okay. Well, the Thunder and the LCDA here in Oklahoma City stepped in and granted her her dream quinceañera. And it was everything. They gave her her dream dress, and it was a gorgeous dress. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. And they hosted the quinceañera here inside of Paycom Center, decked the whole thing out, and her family just got to have a perfect night. And she said it was a dream come true, and that miracles do happen. And at that moment, I was just so happy that this was able to happen. This could happen for her. And if we saw how grateful she was, but her mother, her mother was the one that sent me into Waterworks, because she was just so grateful because her mother wasn't able to have one.
Right.
And so the fact that her daughter was able to live out a dream that she couldn't have, it was
every parent's
beautiful.
dream. You know, give their kids something that they weren't able to have themselves, and that's an amazing thing that obviously the Thunder was able to kind of put that together, and it's just part of like all of these things that were happening all at once over the last week and a half, including a big all-team event, and then also the the donation of the 200,000th book to OKC Public Schools from the Rolling Thunder Book Bus presented by American Fidelity. And that was a really cool event because the Thunder was able to put a name and a face to this massive event here that has happened over the course of the last 12 years, which is, in circulation in the OKC Public School District, there are 800,000 books. And so for the Thunder to have donated over the course of time 200,000 is really sensational.
Yeah, that puts it into real perspective, the impact over the course of, how long has the book bus been?
A dozen years now.
12 years for the Thunder to, and this is something we don't really talk about very often because this is something they're doing regularly, like every single day. Going to different schools in different school districts across Oklahoma City and beyond. It's even gone out to Tulsa and Ada. I mean, like all over Oklahoma.
Right.
And these books, I mean, I got to give so much prop to our community engagement team here in Oklahoma, or here at the Thunder. They are working every single day with it, whether it's a book bus or something like the Thunder's all-team event, which happened last week, where it was the Thunder's annual service project where the business office, so the entire staff here inside of Paycom Center and the entire business operations staff, team, the OKC Blue roster, all of their staff as well, just completely descended upon a school here in Oklahoma City, Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary. And it was a Thunder takeover. I mean, you had players in pre-K classes, you had players in art class, science class, music class. Sam Presti was out there helping teach kids about, rhythm and time signatures.
I would have fallen out of my chair as an elementary school kid if an NBA team descended upon my school.
And Michael Cage is out there. I mean, I don't know if he should have been given advice on how to shoot, but he was out there in the gym.
Stick to the rebounding advice.
Come on now, Mike. I'm just kidding. But it was so much fun. Shai was in the gym as well. And so it was a whole afternoon where these players could just engage directly with students in their classrooms for an entire afternoon. It was pure chaos, but so much fun.
Yeah, and I think all of these things that were sort of happening at once, celebration of 15 years with the Quinceañera, the dozen years of the book bus, and then obviously this great celebration at Martin Luther King Elementary. And then on the back end of that, just this past weekend, was Thunder Legacy Weekend. Yeah. And I thought it was so fitting that kind of in the aftermath of the Thunder just doing what it does and not doing anything just disingenuously, just doing what it's been doing for the last 15 years. Well, here comes a whole host of Thunder players back into, the OKC for the weekend to be celebrated for the legacy that they left. And the fact of the matter is that back in 2008, these Thunder players that came in, guys like Mustafa Shakur, who was here, or, Nick Collison, who was here.
Nenad Christian.
Nenad, Kyle Weaver. Like, these guys were going to elementary schools back then. These guys were, investing and digging roots into the community. A guy like Stephen Hill, who played one game for the Thunder, was here. And then, of course, you've got guys like Daquan Cook, who factored into a run to the NBA Finals. And yet every single player who has spent time in Oklahoma City is welcomed back with open arms and is treated to, the concept that, hey, you may have played in 5 different NBA organizations. You may have played overseas. This can be your basketball home if you want it to be.
And also, your fingerprint is on this organization. Right. And what we're seeing right now, you had a helping hand in building this as well. And I think it's so cool because I look at a guy like Nick Collison, right? And what we know about Nick Collison, when you think of the name Nick Collison, it's diving on the floor for loose balls, it's taking charges, the team first mentality, selfless sacrifice. And if I look at the team right now on the floor, everybody has that same sort of mentality of blue collar plays, lunch pail work ethic, diving on the floor for loose balls, taking charges. And you can see the through lines from that inaugural team in 2008 to the characteristics and kind of the ethos of the team that we see right now in 2023.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's going to continue to happen over time is, this is still a very young organization, the Thunder. We're 15 years in now. Well, that legacy weekend, 20 years in. 25 years. I mean, the guys that are going to continue to matriculate back and be those alumni that want to have, you know, their presence and have that home feeling in OKC is only going to continue to grow. And I think kind of with each successive year, there's going to be a different new fun dynamic as guys sort of join that crew. And, you know, some other things happen during Legacy Weekend. They go and do a community event here down at Scissortail Park. They had a nice fun family like arcade night. They had a nice little brunch, but they also have these health screenings and physicals that the Thunder medical staff put together for these players, which if you think about in their post-playing careers, it's very vital that these guys who put their bodies on the line for years and years and years have some institutional check-in that makes them feel like, hey, all of that sacrifice, we still recognize that and we still value that, and we want to make sure that you guys are completely kind of up to speed on what's going on with your bodies and make sure that, you know, everything is working as it should be.
Yeah, and one other thing we should probably mention is that it's not just a weekend where the Thunder is like checking back in with its older players and former players. This is part of the Thunder Legacy Network where the Thunder just works year round to just kind of keep in touch and keep track of how their former players are doing. And the Legacy Weekend is just kind of like the best weekend. It's like the weekend that everybody looks forward to out of the entire year, where everybody can actually come back to Oklahoma City and be a part of just kind of a homecoming sort of celebration, which is always so much fun. So a lot happening for the Thunder over these past couple of weeks. We are sorry we were gone for so long, but now you know why. There's so much happening. And
too much to do, no time to pod.
I know, but don't worry. We are back, and we will bring you your regular cadence of podcasts as normally scheduled. But if you want to see everything that we just talked about, please, please, please go to OKCThunder.com and check out all of the videos from these past couple of weekends. The Quinceañera video will make you cry. Shout out to V. Diaz, our incredible videographer here for the Thunder, who just... And I should also point out, worked for like 5 months to put that thing together, because she had to track the dressmaker, she had to track the food and the storyline. So that was a lot of time in the making. So shout out to V for putting that together, and for our incredible CE team for all the hard work that they've been putting in over the past couple of weeks as well. So be sure to go to OKCThunder.com and at OKC Thunder on all of our social media channels to check out those videos. That wraps up today's podcast. Thank you so much for watching and tuning back in. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up, and catch you later.